Hello and welcome back to Math with Tiffany. Today we're covering variables part 3, which is really just how to solve with variables. I'm going to start with some very simple examples and work my way up to examples where you'll need to know how to factor. So you can come back to this video later if you need to. So our first example is 3x plus -4 equals 8. So, what do we do first? Well, because this is an equation, we need to keep both sides equal. So whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. So I would get rid of the -4 first. So add +4 to both sides. And that will leave you 3x equals 12. Okay, now then how do you get rid of this 3? Well, you can multiply both sides by 1/3 or you can divide by 3. So I would divide by 3. And these 3's cancel. And that'll leave you x equals 4. And to check your work, you can just plug this back into your original equation. So if we do that, we can do 3 times 4 plus -4 equals 8. And that gives you 12 plus -4 equals 8. And 12 minus 4 is 8 equals 8. So that is correct. Okay, so our next example is also a simple example, but this one's working with exponents. So our next example is 4x squared equals 144. So with this one, I know the x squared is a bit scary, but we're not going to worry about that at the moment because you can still just divide both sides by 4 to get rid of this 4. So divide by 4 on each side, and that gives you x squared equals 144 divided by 4 is 36. Okay, now then how do we get rid of the squared? You take the square root of both sides. So square root, and that gives you x equals, and the square root of 36 is 6. And again, to check your work, let's plug it back in to our original equation to see if it works. So 4 times 6 squared equals 144. 4 times 36 equals 144, and 4 times 36 is 144. And that's correct. Now, and when you get to upper level math, when you do the square root like we did here, you can do, they're going to have you do plus or minus, because if you take the square root of -6 squared, it also gives you -6, and that's talking about imaginary numbers. But for right now, you really don't have to worry about it, so just do 6. Okay, and so then our next example, in this example, you're going to want to know how to factor. I'll kind of explain it as we go, but I'm going to make a video over factoring that you can go watch, and then you can come back and look at this example. So this example is x times 4 plus x equals 192. Now then you're going to have to expand this. So your x is going to times your 4 and then times this x. So this will give you 4 times x is 4x plus x times x is x squared equals 192. Now with this one, you really can't divide by 4, because if you divide by 4, you have to divide this entire side right here by 4, and that would give you x plus x squared divided by 4, and that really doesn't do you any good. So let's just erase that. Erase. So what do we do? Well, I would move this 192 over to this side. So how do we do that? Well, we subtract 192 from both sides, or add a negative 1, but I'm just going to subtract 192 from both sides. And that gives you, and I'm going to rearrange this a little bit so it's in order. So x squared plus 4x minus 192 equals 0. So now we're solving for where x equals 0, and in this one you would factor. And in factoring, you have two things here. Okay, because this is, use blue, because this is a negative right here, or a subtraction sign, you know in each one it's going to be different. So you'll have a plus in one and a minus in the other one. And this tells you what one goes with the bigger number. So, so you have x here and x here because this is x squared. And you just have a 1 coefficient here. So now what do? Well, we look at the multiples of 192 and see which multiples also subtract to give you 4. So you can list all the multiples, but I have the multiples already. So you're going to use 12 times 16 equals 192, and 16 minus 12 also equals 4. So like I said, your plus goes to your bigger number. Well, 16 is your bigger number here, so your 16 will go here, and your 12 will go here. Equals 0. Now then, to finish this, you solve each one for 0, because if this is 0, then the entire thing is 0, because 0 times a number, no matter what this is 0. And then when this is 0, then the entire thing's 0. So you will, let's do this in blue over here. So you have x plus 16 equals 0. So subtract 16 from both sides. I'm not going to show that because that's simple. X equals negative 16. And then if you do x minus, let's put that too low. And then if you do x minus 12 equals 0, you add 12 to both sides and you get x equals 12. So in this equation, your x can be either, so x equals 12 or x equals negative 16. And if you plug that back in to your equation up here, negative 16 or 12 will work. They'll both give you 192. Okay, and then for our final example of how to solve, we're going to do it, I'm going to put a little line over here, like so. For our next example, we have 11x plus 20 equals 4x plus 34. Now then, what do you do when your x's are on both sides? Well, I would move the 4x over to the 11x side, and you would do that by subtracting 4x from both sides. So minus 4x minus 4x. And these 4x's cancel, and 11 minus 4 is 7, so 7x plus 20 equals 34. Now I would get rid of the 20, so minus 20 on both sides. And that gives you 7x equals 14. And then you would divide each side by 7. And this 7 cancels with this 7. So that gives you x equals 2. And again, you can check your work by plugging it in to your original equation and making sure it works. So yeah, so that is today's Math with Tiffany. Oh,